Welcome back to another episode of Pragmatic Optimist. I'm Rachel Cohen. I'm an attorney. None of this is legal advice. I'm recording solo today because, as you can tell, I am still on vacation. And I'm keeping them really short for that reason. So don't tell me that I need to rest because I'm fully aware and I'm doing my best. But we're going to be talking about the two stories of Portland that emerged from the majority opinion and the dissent in Portland v. Trump, which came out yesterday, October 20th, and temporarily stayed a temporary restraining order issued by the district court that barred Donald Trump from federalizing the National Guard in Portland. What that means in non-legal gibberish is that right at this moment, Donald Trump can federalize the Guard in Portland, though the city of Portland's challenge remains being litigated in the federal courts. And in these opinions that were issued, there was it's a three-person judicial panel at the Ninth Circuit. So there were two Trump-appointed judges and one judge, Judge Grable, who's appointed by Bill Clinton. And those judges actually each wrote an opinion, which is not super common. There was a majority opinion that said that Donald Trump could federalize the Guard as this was litigated because he had shown that it was likely that he had met the requirements of Title 10, which allows him to federalize the Guard where there is an inability for the federal agents, in this case ICE, to enforce federal law without the assistance of the military. There's that majority opinion. There was a concurrence by the kind of third judge, the second Trump appointee, which I will be honest, I didn't read that closely because they're not usually very good writers. And then there was a dissent by Judge Grable, which was very, very strong and ended with perhaps the strongest language I've ever seen in a judicial opinion. And understand that this judge she's relatively moderate in terms of the politicization of the court system that we see in this moment in particular. The longer someone has served on the bench, I think that it is fair to say that the judicial appointments and the politicization of judicial appointments in the United States has massively ramped up over the last 20, 30 years. So somebody who was appointed in the Clinton administration is much more likely to still view their judicial analysis as neutral in terms of politics. And so to have her saying something like, the opinion ends on a line begging the American public who is rapidly losing faith in our judiciary to hold on to their faith a little bit longer. What that means is that she is almost certain to request an en banc rehearing, which means that there would be a panel not of 3, but I believe of 9 judges, and they will review kind of that stay opinion and see if the stay should indeed be granted. That doesn't guarantee that the stay will be reinstated, but I will say it seems unlikely that she would write with such strong language if she didn't think that there was a very, very good chance of doing so. And this was a very bad draw in terms of 3 judges reviewing those stays. But what I want to focus on specifically is the different stories of Portland that come out of the majority and the majority opinion and the dissent. Because it goes to something that I haven't talked about so much on Legal AF. I think Tiara and I have gotten into it a little bit, but I've been talking about a lot on my personal socials and on my Substack, which is there's this notion right now that there's a right way to protest that will not enrage the Trump administration. I'm seeing that comment a lot. I think sometimes it's from bots, but I think a lot of the time it's from real people. Don't give Donald Trump an excuse to send in the Guard. Don't give them what they want. Make sure to protest a very specific way. If there's any type of escalation, make sure to do X, Y, Z. I say this with love. I think that a lot of those comments are coming from people who are not protesting, because those of us that are in the streets know that no matter how peaceful you are, it is often pretty impossible to avoid escalation by ICE officers, by police officers, by agents of the state broadly. But I think just separately, the way that the majority opinion in Portland at the Ninth Circuit talks about the city of Portland and talks about the threats to safety to ICE officers, the way that ICE officers just couldn't enforce the law. Even in that write-up, some of it is obviously bullshit. There's like multiple paragraphs about how ICE was too scared to enforce the laws because people were shining flashlights into their eyes. They're very tough. But there's this kind of description of people showing up with bats and sticks and people being there with weapons and all of these other things. And then Judge Grable in her dissent quotes the police department's write-ups of the state of protest out in front of that Portland ICE facility that's become kind of the epicenter of these discussions, that make very clear that there were like 20 people there max at any given time, and a lot of them were sitting in lawn chairs. And so I think it's really important to have two takeaways here. One is that I don't think we need to be policing how other people protest. And I'm particularly concerned by how frequently I say that on the internet and people come in and say, no, we must have nonviolent protests. I disagree with you. When I've never said that I want anything other than nonviolent protests. I am very much a nonviolent protester, participant, organizer, all of these things, and think that is the way to go for a variety of different reasons. But I think we're so tense and we're so unprepared to think about even like confrontational protest, anything that's not a permitted march through the streets, which I also think have their time and place and are very important, that those are inherently bad because Donald Trump is going to abuse them. And it doesn't matter because his judges are going to write up whatever they want anyway. They will escalate. They cited to like social media bomb threats that never materialized. I am sure there will always be some 17-year-old posting that shit on the internet, but even to the extent there isn't, they can write those themselves. Think about, I am not a tinfoil hat person, but I do not believe that anti-ICE was written in permanent marker on bullet casings that were then used to murder people who were migrants. And I will say those two were used in the majority opinion to talk about the threat of violence outside of ICE facilities. That happened in Dallas, Texas, not in Portland. It's completely irrelevant to what was actually being decided in the Portland case. And yet they used it. There's nothing to be done that will 100% prevent the Trump administration from doing whatever it wants. So that's point number one. Point number two is that I think that we all need to be, and I always feel a little weird saying this on a YouTube show, you should fact check me. Like I'm wrong sometimes. I'm doing my best. But the rapidity of misinformation and wrong framing that is coming out of just a variety of different places, up to and including opinions written by Ninth Circuit jurists, what you read described in this opinion is so far from the truth of what's happening in Portland, and it's pointed out by the dissent. And I think that we need to make sure that we are all thinking very, very hard about what is trustworthy and what is likely and what is real as we are reviewing news. And so that's kind of the summary on the ground. My pragmatic optimism is a little bit limited in this moment, except that I remain optimistic about the outcomes of an on-bank rehearing. And we'll keep you all posted over here on Pragmatic Optimists on Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. You can like, subscribe, follow along here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Substack. And I'm also going to write up kind of the meat of this particular video for my own Substack at Cohen489 later today. So see you soon. Hang in there.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.